Joining me now in the group chat, Courtney Brown, Axios economics reporter Kevin Frey, Washington correspondent for Spectrum News, New York One, and Sabrina Rodriguez, national political reporter for the Washington Post. Okay, so we heard a couple things just in that statement. One, casting doubt on the Congressional Budget Office, which is a favorite pastime when the math doesn't work out for your legislation. But what was interesting in that is, number one, in another clip, he actually says that he was like texting with Elon to be like, actually, no, this bill math, it really works. But financial markets are spooked too, right? Like, who's buying the math here?
Well, the financial markets, they do not buy the math. They're extremely spooked by the size of the bill. We've seen yields go up and down and up and down, and it's this crazy volatility that's freaking out Wall Street. And the fear is that the budget is just getting out of control. Ironically, the more that the financial markets get spooked about the size of the bill, the more expensive the bill actually gets because borrowing costs go up.
Right.
It matters for Americans, too. These are the rates that set mortgages and, the rates to borrow for auto loans. So it matters.
And yet they keep trying. Here is OMB Director Russell Vought telling CNN this weekend.
I love Elon. This bill doesn't increase the deficit or hurt the debt. In fact, it lowers it by $1.4 trillion. We continue to work with people in the Senate as to working them through what the specifics of the bill, what it does and what it doesn't do. We'll continue to do that. And I think at the end of the day, the Senate will have a resounding vote in favor of a substantially similar bill.
How are people preparing to counter this message? We know what they're saying. No matter what, post through it. Say that it's going to lower everything. But Sabrina, I know you were out reporting. I think it was in South Carolina. Do people hear that, or are they busy thinking about Medicaid specifically? What do average people talk about at these town halls?
Yeah, I was down in South Carolina and Columbia for the Democrats convention. So this is a big conversation right now. This is a big talking point. Of course, Democrats are mad just to begin with that they weren't involved in the process around this bill. But there is really as Trump calls it, the air quotes, big, beautiful bill. There's a lot of messaging around, Medicaid cuts specifically and saying, now as this hits the Senate and there's going to be a debate over the funding and debate over, okay, how much does this add to the national debt? Are there going to be even more cuts in place? What exactly is going to happen? Because right now we are hearing, senators aren't on board with this. And even as you hear Speaker Johnson trying to, the math is not mathing here, but while he tries to make that happen, you actually do have some Republican senators, a select few, but enough to tank the bill, who are saying, no, we know that this is not correct.
And that's a fall line to exploit, right? I mean, do you see actual conversation now? Like, okay, every time a Republican speaks, some Democratic consultant gets their wings, and you get to have an ad about Medicaid.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's going to have to be changes to comply with what these senators are concerned with. You have a group that's the Lisa Murkowski's of the world, but also the Josh Hawleys of the world, who are very concerned about
Missouri, and very much a Trump supporter.
And who has gone so far as to suggest that major cuts to Medicaid amount to political suicide, as he said in the New York Times in an op-ed.
An op-ed.
Correct.
So it's not just a quote in the New York Times. It's like hit send.
He wrote and sent. Yeah. On top of that, there are probably going to be changes to the state and local tax deduction, which is important for these key Republican House members that you need, let alone other changes. So this faces a very complicated path forward, and obviously some Republicans are getting skittish, as we were just hinting at, about the Medicaid portion of this bill.
And more pressure ramping up. Group chat, stay with me. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later, how it's playing out. Group chat is back. It occurs to me the problem is not wanting more, it's what is more. I feel like it's not clear, partisans, the average person, what they mean when they say they want more. More spending, more cuts, more what? I mean, how are Democrats talking about it?
I think one of the biggest themes from this weekend and seeing, Governor Tim Walz and Governor Wes Moore talking about this is they're trying to understand what exactly it is that people want, which of course is sort of standard reflective mode after an election, especially when you have a bruising defeat like they did. But I think the conversation is really they're realizing there are things to learn from the Trump playbook. That was one of the common themes that you heard from Walz and from Moore this weekend, is saying, wait, something that Trump had right here is being really impatient, moving quickly, being decisive. One of the biggest frustrations that I heard from Democrats this weekend and on the campaign trail last year is a feeling that Democrats promise all these things, but then they only do little incremental changes, or they're very deferential to the system and to kind of the procedural. And one of the things that we heard from these governors now is saying, okay, no, we got to learn from Trump that he's impatient, breaks things, moves quickly, does things swiftly and dramatically, and we need to do that. You know, Governor Moore, he kind of summed it up as saying, if Trump can do bad in so little time, can't we do so much good in little time?
Yeah. The poll also asked which party best reflects their view on a range of issues, and when it comes to crime, the economy, immigration, Republicans still hold an advantage, although actually those numbers are starting to slip. How did you think about this poll as you were looking through?
I couldn't help but be reminded about a big problem in my part of the world, the econ part of the world. We can't get a clean read on how consumers feel about the economy because the data has been infected by partisanship, really in an unprecedented manner. So,
meaning your partisanship reflects whether or not you think the economy is good or not?
Do people think the economy is not doing well, or do they just not like who's in the White House? This is a huge problem right now, and it's making it impossible to get that clarity that economists like to see about how consumers are doing. Do they intend to spend? Makes it impossible to forecast.
Because we also think like math should solve things. Numbers should tell us the facts. This should not be hard to figure out. But pollsters were also asked if people believed which was the party of the middle class. And going back to 1989, Democrats used to be the lead in this. And now it's actually tied with Republicans, which is saying something. How are you thinking of these numbers?
I mean, there's like a couple threads to pull out here. I mean, one thing that I think this is reflective of, and kind of building off of what you were saying, is Trump came in promising that I alone can fix it, kind of this actionable man. You saw Congressman Jeffries over the weekend with Dana Bash saying that the people are, his takeaway from this sort of polling is that the people are frustrated with the system and how it's working. And so you combine those factors, which arguably are somewhat reflective of some of the other items in this poll, including the economic inequality, people feeling like they don't have upward mobility. All of those competing factors come together, and suddenly this kind of populist urge kind of it becomes an undercurrent, and Trump plays into that really well, which kind of alters how these parties are maybe appealing to different bases.
Yeah, there's so much focus on communication. It's a little bit like complaining about the pipes when really the water's bad. Like, it's not clear to me what this message is they want to pass on. We're going to hear more. Group chat is back. I think that was live from a graveyard, just to underscore the point. Sarcasm is my love language, but it feels like this is not the moment. Like, it's a kind of a... You guys are just like head shaking. What's head shaking about this in this moment for this bill? Let me do it that way.
So, two things. One, this seems to be maybe symptomatic of kind of the Trump iteration of the Republican Party, that you never apologize for anything. That's clearly what was going on there. Two, this kind of only underscores what clearly is a reality of this bill, that the Republican Party is just not quite sure of how to navigate in terms of a messaging standpoint, because we know Democrats are eager to exploit this Medicaid aspect of this. We know Democrats spoke over the weekend, Schumer and Jeffries on Sunday. We know that the House Democrats are going to go over to the Senate this week to kind of show ways to exploit this bill. Medicaid's going to be front and center of it.
But what you're saying is, like, the Medicaid question isn't going away.
No.
Just like the cost question isn't going away.
The thing here, though, is like this is a short-term response to something, because the reality is if this bill passes and millions of people do lose Medicaid, this is going to be an issue we're talking about. Right now, it's a hypothetical about if it happens. So she can do the sarcastic apology and can kind of double down and sort of. But the reality is, for Iowans, when next year this bill, if it does pass and there are cuts, there's going to be a real answering and a real reckoning around what was the impact, and will people actually die? Will this actually impact
the internet
these
never
communities?
forgets.
And notably, the timing of the Medicaid cuts, the way they've moved them up as part of the compromise in the current status of the bill, would land right around midterm season.
Okay, you guys, I want to, since it's Monday, talk about what you are thinking about the rest of this week, what you're keeping an eye on. Kevin Frey, let me start with you.
I'll be the Debbie Downer of the morning, which is that hurricane season has officially kicked off, but we are now seeing cuts at FEMA. We are seeing cuts at NOAA. And notably,
so these were the Doge cuts, which we've talked about a lot, right?
Doge cuts, the residual of that. Craig Fugate, a former leader of FEMA, over the weekend, warning in the Associated Press that he has concerns that this is going to be a liken to 2005, notably the year of Katrina, because of essentially the brain drain at the FEMA and the folks that have knowledge of how to navigate these disasters.
Okay, Courtney, what about you?
We get the May jobs report on Friday.
Yes.
So far, the economy has held up pretty well as far as the indicators are concerned. But, all my sources tell me that this is a mirage. The economy is weakening under the weight of tariffs, and we've all just been waiting for it to show up in the economic data. So we'll see what happens on Friday at 8:30 a.m.
Yeah, hearing from the business community. I was talking with the CEO a few weeks ago, and he said it's really about the jobs numbers. That's what he's keeping an eye on.
For sure.
I am keeping an eye on credit debt and sort of how people are increasing their spending. Sabrina, you?
Yeah, I think during the break we were talking a little bit about the tariffs and just the roller coaster we're on of one day Trump kind of doubling down, the next day his administration officials talking they're open to negotiations. So I think there's a big question right now in the
very
coming
upset
weeks.
when someone brought up the term taco trade, which stands
And
for
if he was
Trump
a chicken,
always
yep.
chickens out.
So I think there's a real question right now as we head, into this crucial month for them having potential negotiations with other countries. I think there's a question, will they actually come to fruition on some deals, or are we just going to see way more tariffs in July?
Yeah, and it's also supposed to, the long-range vision is supposed to help improve the economy over time, right? That's why you could have Johnson saying, well, like the CPO numbers, they're not good because they don't talk about the U.S. economy growing, which it has always done. Is it a fair assumption to just go, it's always going to grow no matter what?
I don't think that's a fair assumption at all. I think on the one hand, you have, however little the tariff revenue offsets the cost of the bill, they kind of need that tariff revenue. They've bragged about that tariff revenue. But on the other hand, this is exactly the thing that economists are worried about as far as throwing the economy into a recession.
Right.
We have no hint of that so far.
Yes, but
it's the
also
fear.
Makes global markets and people around the world who always trusted our economy to be stable, not to have uncertainty. They've got a lot of questions now. You're seeing that in the bond market as well. You guys, thank you so much. We've talked about a lot today on a very busy and difficult news day. I want to thank you for being with us today. I'm Audie Cornish, and we're going to have more headlines on CNN News Central. That starts right now.